this industry is so incredibly fraught with having to give up your personal time and it being eaten up by work. You're missing important life events and you're working nights and weekends. I mean, the amount of times I hear from an agency owner that I'm working 60 to 80 hours a week and that they're exhausted, that they're burnt out. And I know for a fact that creativity does not really get fostered in that type of environment. The problem is that you do not have a framework for yes and no of the things that you spend your time on. And so ultimately, you end up ending your day really late and you're working on the weekends and missing those important life events because you're not able to understand when you should be saying yes and when you should be saying no. And without this framework, your day kind of just happens to you. You end up saying yes to everything because you either feel like you need to or think that you can take it on, and you have this genuinely optimistic viewpoint on how everything is going to play out. And so what we want to do is actually create a framework for boundaries for you. And so for me, I've really struggled with this. It's been really, really difficult for me to figure out boundaries and set them and hold myself to them. I've spent years battling this and was in the place where at one point in my life and my career that if my eyes were open, I was working. And it was very difficult to continue to be in that place on an ongoing basis and having that place of burnout. And the first step for me doing this is what I'm going to actually talk to you about today, is how to actually go about setting up those boundaries. Once you have parameters around what you are going to be doing and what you aren't, and how you actually want to live your life, it allows for you to have that understanding of when you should be saying yes and when you should be saying no. Having that framework, having that understanding is really going to be helpful for you. And I want you to, and if you're not familiar with the idea and the concept of Parkinson's law, I want to talk to you about that for a moment. So Parkinson's law is the concept that humans will utilize all available resources that we have available to us. I think that we've kind of proven that in the world that we will do that. Time is a resource that we will utilize all of it. And if we give ourselves the opportunity to use it, we will. So we have to constrain that opportunity. And I will describe this to you in two different scenarios. So we've got high-powered CEO, and we've got grandma who's retired. Grandma wants to send out a postcard. Same with CEO, needs to send out a postcard. Grandma doesn't have anything going on that day, so she wakes up, has a cup of coffee, sits down thinking about what kind of postcard she wants to send and what does she want to write on it. She leaves to go to the store to go buy it and realize, I forgot my purse. Goes back home, sits down, has a cup of tea, thinks about the postcard a little bit more, goes back to the store, buys the postcard, goes back home, writes it out, and then goes to the post office and sends it out. It takes a total of 5 hours to send out this postcard. High-powered CEO, she's super busy. She's in between meetings, has a couple emails that she needs to get back to, has a total of 15 minutes between meetings, and needs to get this postcard out as well. So what she ends up doing is she ends up deciding that she's going to ask her assistant to go downstairs and get a postcard. But before you go, I'm going to actually tell you exactly what I want you to write on it and sign my name for me. It dictates it to her, and the postcard is then purchased and sent out, and it takes her all but 15 to 30 seconds. So we've got 5 hours on one side and then 15 to 30 seconds on the other. And that's because the decision-making framework that we gave ourselves and that those two people gave themselves, they had to make a choice with what available resources that they had. So what I want you to start doing is actually constraining your resource. If you're able to constrain your resource, you make different decisions. Anyone that tells me that they do not have time, I tell them that they're wrong. They do. They're just prioritizing other things. And that's okay. I'm not saying that the priorities are necessarily wrong. They may or may not be. It depends on the individual. But they do have time. They're spending it somewhere else. And if they want to prioritize something different, they have to make a different decision. And so what I'd love for us to do today is talk about a framework on how to make a different decision, or a mechanism by which you're going to start to make a choice. And so we're going to define our ideal day and our ideal week. Utilize that framework around how to make a choice. So what I want you to do is actually, and I've defined Parkinson's law here, work expands to fill the time available for its completion. And what I'd love for you to do is actually take this worksheet, and we are going to fill out your ideal week. So we're going to list out in the early morning, we're going to go to the gym, and I'm going to do that 3 days a week. And then I am going to start my initial growth focused, my initiatives from 9 to 10 a.m. And then I'm going to have client meetings from 10 to 12. And then I have lunch from 12 to 1. And then 1 to 3, I have client meetings. And then from 3 to 4, I am having internal meetings. And then at 4:30, I go home. At 5:30, I have dinner with the family. And then I hang out with the family. And that's personal time after that. Whatever your day is like, and whatever you want your ideal day to be, you're going to go ahead and fill that out for every single day throughout the week. Reserving your Saturdays and Sundays for personal time. What I want you to be able to do to take this from this is that you can then utilize technology and your systems to be able to provide the framework around making these choices. Internal meetings are only set during certain times. Client meetings are only set during certain times. You focus during certain times. And so you can use Calendly, whatever calendar app, everything's booked through that. And if you're not available, you're not available. The piece that gets layered on top of this is a system called time blocking that allows for you to start to choose when and where your eyes should be. I joke with my clients and my team all the time that if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen, because every single thing that I do is planned out, at least from a work life piece. And then I have my constraints around when and where and what I will be doing when. And I want you to create that constraint. Make sure that you are in a place that you are constraining the available time for its possible completion. Having you actually forcing yourself to make a different choice. So ultimately, you can have a different outcome. Your decision is the first step to actually being able to take an action. So here's the decision you have to make today of what it is exactly that you want your life to look like. I can't decide that for you, and nor can anyone else. You have to set your boundary, constrain that available time, and you will be able to see some dramatic changes. Actually, stick to it. Make those decisions. Those decisions can be hard. It was for me. Very difficult. But these boundaries are extremely important. And you will really thank yourself later for doing this. I hope anyone watching now that is currently in the place that I was many years ago is able to not have to be in that place in perpetuity, and being able to have a life that provides them with more energy and filling their cup, if you will. If you have any questions about this, please do feel free to comment below. Happy to help you out and give you any tips and advice. I did, like I mentioned, struggle through this myself, so happy to tell you what I did and how I managed each one of these items, because it did take some time for me to habitually change my response to each one of these. All right, everybody, it was great hanging out. I will see you guys next